Hey, good afternoon, YouTubers. Jeff Nadolny. Thanks for tuning in for episode 3. The House the Devil Built, America's Most Haunted House. The dark and strange history of the Kongler Mansion in Pittsburgh is lost to time, but not to those who have heard the stories. When you think of the most haunted house in America, you probably jump right to the sinister-looking Colonial in Amityville, Long Island, or even the home in St. Louis that inspired The Exorcist. But not every famous haunt has an empire of entertainment media to boost its reputation. Some of it is part of the local oral history. And for the residents of Pennsylvania's most western city, Pittsburgh, the stories of the Kongler Mansion made it more than deserving of the title, the most haunted home in America. It's been given several other monikers through the years, including the House the Devil Built. Origins of evil. According to legend, the house on 1129 Ridge Ave was built in the 1860s in the Manchester neighborhood of Pittsburgh's North Side. Charles Kongler was the original owner and inhabitant, along with his wife Lyda and their maid Essie. Kongler made a fortune as a direct result of the Civil War, and moved his family north to settle in the booming industry town of Pittsburgh. Like many great tragic stories, it ends with infidelity and a jealous wife. Lita, after discovering her husband and Essie were having an affair, in a rage took several knives from the kitchen and slaughtered her unfaithful husband and his mistress. She was found by a neighbor several days later, calmly sitting in a chair with a severed head of the maid on top of her lap. The mad scientist. After the grisly murders, the house was dormant for quite some time until a railroad company purchased it in 1892, planning to convert it into a housing for their staff. After several workers complained of strange noises and unexplained happenings in the house, the railroad abandoned it and put it up for sale, where it remained on the market for several years until 1900, when Adolf C. Bunrich, a German-born doctor, purchased the house. Bunrich was described by his neighbors as a recluse who did not often partake in socializing and spent much of his time in the house by himself. But on the night of August 12, 1901, neighbors reported the sounds of a woman screaming and strange lights in the home. The police were called and were appalled to find the body of a decapitated woman and the doctor nowhere to be found. What comes next is straight out of the American Horror Story, as they discovered a laboratory in the basement with several more body parts, and most horrifying, a severed head that Dr. Brunrick had used in his ghoulish experiments to keep victims of decapitation alive after the fact. The doctor was never seen again, though almost 30 years later some believe he emerged from hiding in New York, drunk and claiming to have conducted strange experiments in Pittsburgh. Police didn't put much weight on the man's identity and eventually released him from prison, deeming him harmless and never to appear in history again. A home for spirits, thanks to the dark history, which only seemed to grow with each new tenant. The house developed a reputation as a home for wayward spirits, according to some accounts. Thomas Edison himself was one of the many who visited this house to investigate the notorious paranormal phenomenon. Along with Julia Murray, a psychic medium of the time, they claimed to encounter a malevolent spirit with the power to harm the living and the ability to travel beyond the confines of the home. It continued to be dormant of any new inhabitants until it was once again purchased, this time by the Equitable Gas Company, again to be converted into apartments for workers. As before, the workers inside reported strange noises, disembodied voices, and 2 workers were discovered dead in the basement of the home. No cause of death or homicide suspect was ever found, and many of the men quickly moved out of the house. The company continued to maintain a presence in the area, but in November of 1927, a massive gas explosion resulted in a spectacular damage to the surrounding area, leaving 27 dead and over 500 people injured. The house itself was totally destroyed in the blast, leaving only a crater in the earth where once the house had stood. The site, however, wasn't free of its dark past just because the house was gone. Several locals continue to report strange occurrences happening in and around the former location of the house, leading some to suggest the explosion was caused by the devil in an attempt to reclaim the dark and mysterious house for himself. The story of the Kongler Mansion has captured the imaginations of the horror and American citizens for over a century. But like Amityville, how much of it is real? We do know a family named Kongler lived at the exact address on Ridge Ave, and in 1927, Mary Kongler was killed during a gas explosion when shattered glass from the home's windows severed an artery in her leg. The house was then demolished sometime after her death, and the highway was later built over the homestead. As for the evil German doctor, no record of him exists, according to historian Troy Taylor, but the legend continues to haunt locals as they share their experiences and stories of the strange mansion. Perhaps it just so happens the origins of legends have some horrifying grounding in the fact, but it's something we may never know truly. Pittsburgh is home to a slew of haunted histories. From the howled halls of the University of Pittsburgh Cathedral of Learning to the world's famous Halloween attraction Scare House, rumored to be really haunted. The Kongler Mansion is just one of the many tales of hauntings intertwined in the industrial history of America's steel town. And whether you choose to believe the gruesome tale or not, some parts are rooted in fact. So that begs the question, where there's smoke, is there fire? Or is this simply a case of collective imaginations of the people of Pittsburgh run wild for local scares and fun? We may never know. Come back soon, YouTubers. Episode 4 will be soon. And with that, have a blessed and scary day.